Good morning. I'm continuing talking about the Dhammapada, and today I come to the section, in this little book, it's called Old Age. I noticed that in Sangharakshita's Bante's translation, it's called decay, and that's probably a more accurate word, really, than just old age. I say that because this particular section is, I think, more aimed at people who are living a full-time Buddhist life and who, perhaps even are determined to gain enlightenment in this lifetime. So perhaps it's more apt for monks and nuns. I'm saying that because at the time of the Buddha and a long time afterwards, and possibly even still today, there's a particular Buddhist practice that monks engage in, which is contemplating the decay of the body and the dissolution of the body after death. So it's a kind of gruesome practice that for most of us it wouldn't really be very helpful. We just end up in a lot of aversion. So it's not a practice that we would do, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't contemplate death, because it's at the heart of impermanence, isn't it? The most troubling aspect of impermanence is our own impermanence. And perhaps, obviously the impermanence of others that we're very attached to, others that are of our loved ones. But fundamentally, we're even more concerned, even more terrified perhaps, of our own extinction. And so preparation for that by contemplating death and the fragility of the human body is, very pertinent. Anyway, I'm going to read some verses, and it finishes on a high note, just in case you're wondering. So this section is called Old Age. It says, the first verse, "How can there be laughter and joy when the world is always ablaze, clouded in darkness? Why do men not seek the light?" It's a lovely verse, actually, that. How can there be laughter and joy when the world is always ablaze, clouded in darkness? Why do men not seek the light? Well, this does remind me of a parable from the White Lotus Sutra. And it's the story of the little children inside the burning house. And the one representing the Buddha, of course, is the wise man outside of the house who wonders how he can entice all these little children out of the burning house, because they're playing and enjoying themselves so much that they're just not listening. They're not hearing the flames licking at the rafters and so on. Anyway, he does get them out, but that image is a very strong one. That actually we're all in a burning house. We're all in the grip of our passions, you could say, because fire is very much a representation, isn't it, of passion, but also of transformation. But yes, the world is ablaze, and we're not seeing it. Some people might think, well, actually, I do see it because, I really care about ecological issues and the fact that we're ruining the world, ruining our earth. Look at what we're doing to it. But of course, unfortunately, there are so many people who, if you ask them, they might care. They might say that they care about the world. They care about global warming and so on. But actually, if you ask them to do something about it, not by demonstrating, but by changing their life radically, how many people would do that? It's like, I'll help as long as I don't have to give up any of my comforts, any of the things that make my life pleasurable. I want to drive my car when I want to drive it. I want to fly when I want to fly, and so on. I think the proportion of people that are actually prepared, would be prepared to radically change their life is probably not that great. And of course, the government wouldn't make themselves popular by passing laws that radically reduce people's freedom. So people are all into their freedom, and that means the freedom to consume as much as they want, and do exactly what they want. And of course, there is the technology nowadays to do it. So in a way, society fosters greed and hatred and so on, but actually, at the same time, telling us we've got to save the planet. So there's a discrepancy there, isn't there? There's a big discrepancy. So yes, we are in this blazing world, and it doesn't mean we shouldn't do what we can to look after the planet and to look after each other even more. So we're clouded in darkness. So seeking the light would be seeking freedom from our negative mental states. I could say seeking enlightenment, but for most people that's not going to mean very much. What does it mean, enlightenment, to us who haven't experienced it? Second verse. Look at this body, sickly, racked with pains, which does not endure. This body wastes, is full of disease and feeble, and then it perishes. Death is the end of life. What that verse reminds me of is that we've got life going on in our body. I mean other lives, and then our skin and so on. There's bacteria and so on that we don't even know about, that are kind of festering away in our body. And it's only when we get seriously ill that we know that anything like that is going on. We think we're in control of our body, but we don't know half of what's going on in our body. So there's all sorts of diseases. I mean, particularly as you get older, particularly when you reach my age, that actually you're just very lucky and fortunate if you don't have some of those diseases, because many, many years ago, even just 100 years ago, people died long before my age. I mean, I would be now a very, very old person. But of course, nowadays we have an expectation to live for a very long time. And in a way, we're on borrowed time, because the body is winding down. The body is trying to give up the ghost, as it were. And we've got all sorts of ways that we keep ourselves going. I mean, I'm fortunate myself to be really healthy at this age, but a lot of people by my age are taking blood pressure pills and so on, statins, and, trying to combat. It's just combating a natural process. That's the thing. It's strange to think of it like that, because we don't. If you've got high blood pressure, you go to the doctor and you expect to get some treatment so that you don't continue to risk having a heart attack or a stroke. But years ago, no, you would just have got those things and that would be it. So, we're very fortunate that we've got these long lives, but in a way, it gives you more cause to be alarmed if something goes wrong. We expect to live, many, many people live to 100 now. The next verse is particularly for monks and nuns, I think. What pleasure is there in looking at these bleaching bones scattered like gourds in the autumn? Well, of course, I'm referring there. This is referring to the practice of going to the cremation grounds and the burial grounds and literally seeing scattered bones, or sky burials where birds would come and pick the bones. So there isn't a lot of pleasure in looking at a body that's in a state of decay. This body is a framework of bones, plastered with flesh and blood, and the home of conceit and hypocrisy, old age and death. Strong words, aren't they? So yes, for a lot of us, we have the conceit of youth, the conceit of health, and it kind of ignores what's going on in the body. Then it says, the brilliant carriages of kings wear out, and the body becomes old, but the teachings of the wise never grow old. They are passed on to the good. So truth is indestructible. It just carries on. It's the same as it ever was. So the Buddha of our time, of course, is Shakyamuni Buddha. But there have always been Buddhas, and there always will be Buddhas. In other words, there will be beings that rediscover the truth. They don't make it up. They don't. They're not. They're not constructing a theory. It's not a theory. It's just truth, and it's only by practicing that you realise that that's what it is. It's not a theory. It's just the truth. It's how things really are. And that is indestructible. Anyway, I'm finally going to talk about this rather uplifting verse. It's said to be words spoken by the Buddha, who says, through many weary rounds of rebirth, I have sought the builder of this house. So this house is the body. Now I have found you, O builder, and never again shall you build this house, the body. Your rafters, the passions, are broken, and the ridgepole, ignorance, is shattered. My mind has reached nirvana and the end of craving. So I'll read that again. Through many weary rounds of rebirth, I have sought the builder of this house. Now I have found you, O builder, and never again shall you build this house, the body. Your rafters, passions, are broken, and the ridgepole, ignorance, is shattered. My mind has reached nirvana and the end of craving. So yes, he likens the body, not just the body there, but the passions, the kleshas, all the states of mind, they are all gone, and ignorance is broken. Ignorance is shattered. Ignorance is ended, in other words. So it's very hard for us to imagine that state, isn't it? But it has a pathway that leads in that direction. And that's the great thing, I think, about Buddhism, is that you can, once you start practicing, you can sense that path. You can sense that you may not even be very far along that path, but you sense, some of those kleshas weakening. You sense that there is there's truth in what the Buddha said, and you can see that for yourself. All you need to do is meditate, practice the precepts. You need to bring it down to earth, really, so that you don't get too caught up in wondering about nirvana or whether anybody's enlightened. That's the thing. It's all very practical, but you see the results. So that's that section for today. See you tomorrow.